Welcome back to the Interior Analysis Podcast. I am Jelani Kelly,
And I'm Evan Westman.
and today, you boys, we're gonna be talking about The Boys. The Boys is a Amazon Prime TV show about superheroes and what a take on what superheroes would be like in the real world. We only analyzed season 1 because right now season 1 is the only one that's out. Season 2 will be coming soon. I think they might have put out a release date, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I think I saw there's a teaser for it online.
Yeah, I saw the teaser. The teaser didn't really help with anything, but I guess that's what a teaser's supposed to do. So season 2 is coming, but right now we're just analyzing what season 1 was about, the characters in it, the themes, and other things if we have time for other things.
Yeah.
So we're gonna jump into it. So we're just gonna start right off with one of the biggest things the first season was about, the Me Too movement. There are plenty of examples of the Me Too movement in season 1.
And just real quick, I don't know if I don't know if you've read the comic or not. I haven't, but am I correct when I say the comic came out well before the Me Too movement started?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's I'm just
I think so.
In terms of like the time frame, that seems like something they probably added for the show, or at least played up. I feel like I watched a quick video on like the comparison of the comic, and it seems like they just played it up. There was like a little bit there to begin with like workplace harassment, but they kind of changed it to fit a little better with the times, it sounded like.
Yeah, it was October 6th to November 2012, so yeah, well before.
Okay.
So, plenty of examples. Starlight's first introduction to the Seven with the Deep. Starlight's fight with the two frat guys in the alley when the two frat guys were trying to essentially date rape their one female friend. There was Queen Maeve and Homelander at the A-Train race. Like, nothing actually happened there, but it was when...
you kind of feel the power dynamic in that scene.
Yeah, it was when they were both talking and waving and then talking about their dating in the past, and Homelander stroked her hair, and she was like, yeah, I'm not into this. And I thought he was just going to take the kiss, because why not? You know, he could do what he feels, he can do whatever he wants. So, like you said, you can definitely feel the power dynamic in that scene.
It seemed like what they were doing with Starlight was very much like supposed to be specific to Hollywood, especially in the way that she's like such a public figure. I mean, they kind of do this with everyone,
right?
But I saw it especially with her, where she's in a position of power, but also like she's brand new to it, and she's kind of learning the ropes. And then I feel like it was mostly with like the PR people, like Stillwell, and then Ashley. I don't know if she got a last name or whatever, but she was like the main PR person we saw. Yeah. And they kept on like trying to get her to compromise on things. I guess this isn't totally on that topic, but it's similar to it. And like she kind of had to commit to, I feel like pretty much after like episode 2, she kind of puts her foot down and stops compromising with the whole PR team. I guess there's a little bit later in the season too. It was a cool dichotomy where we saw Maeve, who's kind of so entrenched in her brand that she's been forced to sell out and kind of can't come back from that. And then we have Starlight, who's brand new and can, like, she doesn't have total control over like her brand, but she doesn't have to commit to anything yet. She's still forming her brand.
I mean, I forget which episode they forced her to change her outfit. Was that only the second one?
I think so, but then doesn't she wear it again in it was like 7 or 8 at the dinner?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was kind of the last cry of it, I feel like. And that was even after, I want to say, like Homelander put pressure on her. Like it was right after they all thought that she was sabotaging them from the inside.
Yeah.
So that, for the most part, she kind of stuck to her guns, it seemed like.
And then there was the reversal another example of the Me Too movement. Russell with the deep got his comeuppance, I guess, and the girl he brings home in Ohio, where she fingers his gills. That was a really weird scene.
Yeah.
I don't know. You have anything to add to that scene? I don't know if you.
No, I didn't really have too much of like a first impression of him aside from like what I think you're supposed to have, because I was wondering for like the first couple scenes he's in, like, is he even important? But like it was interesting how he's got such an inferiority complex and he's like, I'm kind of number two around here. And
Yep.
then we find out real fast that like, I mean, his whole brand just seems kind of ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
I had some questions about the powers with this, but like he's basically Aquaman, right?
Yeah, kind of like without the powerful trident and everything. I think most, if not all, the Vault babies are they're like bulletproof or and super strong and stuff like that and durable, but they all have like varying specific powers that separate them from one another.
Yeah, I felt like they kind of were throwing us in and like assuming we already knew though. Like I felt like they were using some shorthand where it was like A Train is basically the Flash. Like his makes sense. I guess that wasn't
Mm-hmm.
really an issue. But then like Maeve, I guess she's supposed to be Wonder Woman, right? At least
Yeah,
that was the sense I got. And then
yeah.
Homelander's obviously Superman, but there were a couple characters where I was a little shaky on like what they could actually do.
Lamplighter, I believe, was supposed to be the Green Lantern. The guy they mentioned that quote unquote retired, the same one that burned Mallory's kids. I don't know if you remember who Mallory is.
I remember who she was. I forgot about that character though.
That part in the comics, I believe, was shown, or it was like a origin arc or something like that in the comics where Lamplighter burned Mallory's kids. Yeah, I believe he's supposed to be the Green Lantern. Who else? Black Noir is supposed to be Batman.
Yeah, I feel like
Trans.
he has the least paralleled real superhero because he's not quite Batman. I did think of Batman with him though.
Yeah, there's spoilers for that character, but as to who he is, because you don't know who he is, right?
Yeah, like does he even talk?
No, he doesn't speak.
Okay. He was actually one of my favorites though, like weirdly.
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah,
scene
man.
where Homelander's going around and like saying what everyone's done wrong. He's
Oh
like,
yeah, he's like,
no,
"You've
Black
been
Noir,
great."
you're good. I was like, yeah.
Yeah. There's also the scene at the dinner where he just stared down the guy at the piano. And the guy was just like, okay, I'll just leave. And then he just starts playing the piano instead.
Oh yeah. Oh, I forgot about that.
And then Translucent, he was replaced. In the comics, Translucent was Jack from Jupiter, who was supposed to be Martian Manhunter. But I guess they made Translucent more, technically speaking, down to earth. I don't know exactly why. Maybe because they needed a creative way to kill off their first suit. But pretty much everybody has the same base of superpowers. I'm just speculating, but I believe this is correct. The strength and durability varies. Homelander is definitely one of the strongest, if not the strongest. And I think Maeve is like a close second. But she can't fly like him, which is why in the flight scene she has to go with him. She doesn't have to. She can go down with the plane, but she chooses not
Right,
to.
yeah.
But that'll be another thing we talk about later.
Yeah, I definitely do want to talk about that plane scene at some point though.
And then let's just move on to the last scene. It's not actually technically a scene. It's just Homelander and Becca. Like that whole thing, the whole reason Butcher is doing this. It was like supposedly a rape or Becca. From Homelander's perspective, it was just she was with him for 3 hours and
Yeah, I definitely wanted clarification on that though, because it doesn't really answer like whether their relationship was like consensual or not, and that really matters in terms of like one, like just the whole context around that, and two, like Butcher's motivation. And it seems like he doesn't know, but like I felt like they didn't like it didn't feel like they wanted it to feel ambiguous, but it really is ambiguous.
Yeah. And the ending did not clear anything up for me either when she came outside. And she definitely looked surprised to see his face.
Yeah, and apparently I don't think that's in the comics either.
No, it's definitely not. It in the comics, she's dead, completely dead, and the baby comes out of her body, while she's dead, still connected to the umbilical cord, and starts shooting laser beams and flying around at the doctors and stuff, and they have to kill the baby too.
Okay, so that's all like totally different.
Yeah, completely. The comics are a lot more shocking than the show. There's a lot of examples I could give, but it's nowhere near as maybe realistic. I feel like the comics just blow everything out of proportion. Maybe that's the point of them. The TV show is just a lot more down to earth.
Yeah, I mean they do seem to be trying to put it in more of a realistic context. Like I kind of felt like it was the other side to the Kick-Ass coin, where like with Kick-Ass we saw like this is what it would look like if somebody actually tried to be a superhero. And this is kind of like the inverse of that, where it's like, okay, superheroes exist. What does that actually look like? And like all the implications that go with it.
You have any more notes on the Me Too movement?
No, I don't think so. I think you covered all of that.
Okay. So we're gonna move on to sexual orientation and religion as a topic, and I don't really have much on this one exactly because all I could think of Believe Expo, with them trying to convert other people to Christianity and all of it. Like Christianity is supposed to entail no homosexuality, and you're supposed to convert others that aren't Christian to being Christian. That's what they say in the show. Of course, it's not all like that. And another thing I realized during the Believe Expo is Maeve didn't have to be present, but then once I realized she didn't have to be present, because I specifically said Maeve because she had that scene with her, I think it was her ex, and then another scene with her ex who was female, so I'm not sure if she's either bisexual or just homosexual. But only Homelander and Starlight had to be at this expo from the 7. Ezekiel, of course, was the one leading it. I was thinking maybe it just wasn't on brand for them for the rest of the 7 to be there, which I guess would make sense because, you know, they're not all about, like, hope and everything. For in the comics, Maeve's backstory, like, made-up backstory for marketing is that she's, like, a queen of hell or something like that, which is...
Well, yeah, so that would be very off-brand for her based on the comics, I guess.
Yeah, and she, like, leads demonic armies or something. Yeah, but they don't really specify what exactly her brand is in the show just yet, so... Really, Starlight and Homelander, I guess, were only supposed to be there because, you know, their brand represents hope.
So. Yeah, well, I mean, Starlight has that background, and Homelander is just, like, he's such a symbol of America, and, like, Christianity has always been sort of integral to, like, the American identity, like, in just kind of all of our, like, monuments and stuff. We have, like, In God We Trust on our coin, so if he's representative of one, he kind of at least has to, like, show favor to the other, I guess, if he wants to be like a symbol of America. I really liked that they included the religious element, though. I actually would have been good with having more of it, because they really only deal with it in the one episode, because like that really is something that would have to happen. Like if you have superheroes existing, there's a lot of questions that would come up with that in religious communities. Like, I mean, I think initially they probably wouldn't get behind it, but then, like, if you have characters like Homelander and Ezekiel who support it and they kind of spin it in a way that's, like, they're chosen by God, which we find out later is, I don't know if they're going to do anything with that based on what else happens in the show, but, like that's really something that they would have to deal with to get, like, religious, not extremists, but, like, devout Christians behind Soup.
Yep. There was the whole thing about... I thought it was really good that they gave made Ezekiel be homosexual and be the one, like, it was just really good irony. He was the one that was, talking about praying the gay away, which is a quote from Huey. I don't know. I just really enjoyed that part of it as well. There was some other examples about you're not supposed to be gay with the poster of Homelander, and it said if you impure thoughts, fly straight.
Oh, I don't remember that coming up.
Yeah, no, it was just really, really brief. It was mentioned for like 2 lines. Starlight says, "Mom, when did they make that?" And her mom was just like, "Oh, that's always been there."
Yeah, I want to call BS on that a little bit. Like, if she's grown up around this community, like, maybe it's gotten more prevalent since she got out the game a little bit, but I don't know. Like, if you grow up with that, you grow up with it. I don't mind too much because I think they turned it into a cool moment with, like, again, her kind of defining her brand, like, speaking about her own beliefs rather than conforming to, like, her kind of intrinsic demographic there.
You're talking about when she's on stage and just talks about her thing
Yeah.
deep.
Well, but she also, like, does take it a little bit of a step further and, like, just kind of denounces a lot of what they stand for in that scene.
And then Huey, that's funny. Huey was the only one that clapped in the crowd. He's just like, yeah, woo, you go.
Yeah, one thing with Ezekiel, though, like, I do agree that it's cool that they, like, have the irony that he's, like, a gay pastor that, like, is very homophobic on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
I do feel a little frustrated with that, though, just because it feels like they're, like, avoiding having that as a theme a little more. It just kind of, like, simplified it and made him into, like, a hypocritical character, which, I don't know, it felt like it was an easy way for them to not have to deal with, like, religion as a theme later and to not have, like, a fully fleshed out gay character. I don't fault them too much on it, but it felt a little bit like a cop-out with that. And part of it is just because, like, that was also one of my favorite episodes and that, like, got left behind afterward. I would have liked to see a little more of that.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't have any more notes on this. Did you have anything else to add for sexual orientation and religion?
I mean, there was just, like, the scene where, and, like, again, it kind of goes back to Starlight's brand. I guess it was like a focus group or whatever.
Oh, yeah, the team.
And they're like doing a Q&A with her, and someone asks, like, about her ex-boyfriend and whether they had sex or not, and I was like, okay, in any other context, that is so, like, a taboo question that, like, she would never have to answer.
Yeah.
I don't know if, like, it speaks to anything within the show or whatever, but I was like, man, they really did, like, put her under a lot of pressure in terms of, like, defining her brand.
Right.
She really does have to choose in that episode, like, do I commit to catering to what everyone in this community wants me to say, or do I kind of do my own thing? And I think that was, like, one of the biggest moments that created that pressure. But also, like, it was very specific to the context where it's like, in any other context, someone would have been like, okay, you don't have to answer that.
Yeah.
But in that context, she definitely has to.
Yep.
I was frustrated for her as a character.
I didn't think about, like, what if this wasn't a superhero situation? That you wouldn't ask a celebrity with that.
Yeah, because she's kind of like, I guess to this point, like, she's been like a small-time superhero, and now she's like such a role model for so many people. So it's like a really big responsibility.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all for that topic. We're going to move on to the next topic, sociopathic tendencies. So the biggest example you can think of in a person, when we'll get into characters in a second. The reason I watched the show was because of Homelander and his sociopathic tendencies. And here we can talk about the plane scene. That's the main scene that showed exactly what kind of guy this quote-unquote hero is.
Yeah, I mean the plane scene, that was definitely my favorite of that episode. One of my favorites of the
Yep.
series. And like the two scenes that come to mind that it's kind of subverting the trope of is, I know that I haven't seen the whole movie, but there's that scene I think in Superman
Yep.
Returns.
Where he lands the plane in the baseball stadium. Hmm.
Yeah. And then the other one that came to mind was Iron Man 3.
Where he's catching the people. Yep.
And it almost directly addresses both of those scenes, because Maeve's like, "Hey, catch the plane." He's like, "Catch it? Like, I can't," which you probably could. Like,
So
I
I'm
mean,
gonna explain a little bit. I've watched a few good YouTube videos on this, obviously, and the comics. He's not as strong in the air flying as he is on the ground. Like when he has leverage to do something, he's much stronger than he is when he's flying. And I think I didn't write down the line exactly, but there's a line that mentions that he's not as strong. And even in that scene, he implies, he's like, there's nothing to stand on. How am I going to even do anything with that? And if he were to ram it straight, he'd run through it, which is exactly what happens in the comics. So I guess that's a shout out to that, because he accidentally, when it's more than just him and Maeve in the comics, and it's like something to do with 9/11, and he accidentally runs through the one of the jet engines of the plane and kills the person that's on his back. I forget which hero. Marathon, I think, was the name of the hero. And
was that supposed to be A Train?
no, A Train is A Train in the comics. I think Marathon was the one before A Train. So this scene happened earlier in the comics. Like it was, so he ran through the jet engine and the plane crashed anyway, and they were trying to save it. That was something, like he had quote unquote legit reasons, but he didn't, showing what he was really about, he didn't even try to do any of those. Like the plane was going to crash anyway, so he might as well have tried at least one of those options she was giving him. And he shot down every single option that she gave him.
Yeah, that was one scene though where I did like, I know we've talked about Maeve's powers a bit now, but like I really did want to know like what could she feasibly do there.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like trying to save them. And it seemed like, obviously from how it ends, it's like she can't really do anything.
Yep.
She calls out basically the Iron Man 3 thing too, where she's like, bring them down one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Or even like, I mean, they can hold hands, do it like three at a time.
Mm-hmm.
To top it off with that scene was the way he was able to spin it to like the press.
Oh yeah.
Because I was like, man, this is, and I think a lot of the other characters in that scene were like, man, this was such an opportunity to like if we'd saved this plane, Soups would definitely have to be put in the military. And then he like
They didn't
spun
have
into
to
the
die.
reporters like, if we were, we could have stopped it. And I was like, damn, what a pivot.
Yeah.
Like he did so well with
She
that.
completely hated him for that scene. She was not into it. And there was a moment in his speech when he was they were like, we hear you, Homelander. He was like, I hear you, brother. And he said, this is soon the world will hear you. And then he says something like, they're gonna hear from all of us, and he shouts that line, and there's like a glint of, I don't know what to call it, rage, or it's a mix of just emotions in it. I think I have a screenshot. I might send it to you after this. But yeah, there's like a glint of like, oh God, this guy is not talking about saving these people. You know what he's really talking about. Like he's determined to get the superheroes into the military, because for his quote unquote mom. But we'll definitely get into his relationship with Stillwell later too. Yeah, the fact that he put on fake tears for this whole thing just to spin it and all of that, and then had the gall to show up to the freaking funeral and read out their names.
Yeah, and then Maeve in that scene too was like, just like, you really are with her there, because it's like, one, what could she have done, but two, also like, what does she do there? Like, she knows what happened. And it's kind of a question that's almost layered throughout the whole thing of like, you know, all these Soups are kind of terrible people, but then again, they're such a symbol of hope for everyone else. It's, I mean, it's kind of what we see with celebrities a lot, where it's like, they're such icons, and then a lot of them turn out to be terrible people for one reason or another.
Yep.
When like some story hits the news about them, and it's like, oh, I guess I can't like them anymore. And we see how much cover up there is that goes into that with all of these soups. Like even that like collateral damage support group, it's like they're all under NDAs or whatever.
PR is their weakness. Like, they might not have a weakness to guns and stuff like Homelander doesn't at all, but their brands are their weakness, I heard.
That was one of my favorite things about the show. Like, I love it when shows can do something with, like, public opinion and kind of politics, but, like, mostly that kind of thing. Like, that's one of my favorite things about House of Cards, is how, like, whenever something happens, they have to figure out, okay, what do we tell the media? And that's so present in this show too.
Yep.
Like, is this going to influence polling with X demographic? How do we cover up like this thing so the A-Train brand can still exist, because there's like 50 people who are like in charge of the brand, and like a ton of people's jobs depend on this one hero.
Yep.
I forget who said it, but I remember someone said the line, "Nobody's famous alone." Yeah.
Stillwell, even her name, she is also sociopathic, much less than Homelander, but she's all about her money, and getting supers into the military, and her position in Vought, which is really all coinciding with her job. She really cares about where she is in the company and controlling the supers. They're her heroes, which is what the Oklahoma senator, I believe he was a senator, said. She said, "My heroes are the most loyal, patriotic," and he was like, well, that's just the thing. They're your heroes, aren't they? Which is part of the reason the military doesn't want them in the military. And another thing I noticed, which kind of bothered me, I want to say, every time she spun around, like, her back was facing the camera, and somebody would say something that you'd think would get a reaction out of her, and every single time she spun around, she was smiling in their face. I don't know if you noticed that, but
I didn't notice it, but I only watched this once.
Yeah.
So
to me, they brought a lot of attention to her. Like, it seemed like she was gathering herself whenever somebody would crack something at her or say something that should have gotten reaction out of her, more than just a freaking smile. I was expecting her to just not be smiling at one point, or make a frown or something at least. I was let down with that, but by the end she was like kind of broken down, I guess. So I guess with her putting on that front, and then I think one of the military CEOs or something said her tennis toned attitude. I think that's what he called it. I don't know exactly what that meant, but I kind of knew what it meant.
Tennis, like the sport?
Yeah, I don't know what it meant, but
I don't know what that might mean either.
He meant she was constantly like wearing a shit-eating grin and putting on a front for everybody she stood in front of, like even like Homelander, because by the end she admitted she was afraid of him. So maybe I'm thinking her sociopathic thing was more of a front than anything, as opposed to Homelander. I believe she was raised with parents and everything, so
yeah. But I mean, I'm sure she's got some of that like corporate drive. Like, I mean, you see a lot of real world CEOs, like Mark Zuckerberg is, I don't know, sociopath might be a little bit far for him, but it's probably not that far. Yeah. And like, I would think to get to where she is, she's had to be really tenacious, and I'm sure that's become sort of a habit for her. So, and she kind of like, she doesn't have any powers herself, but she's got the 7, not in her pocket, but I mean a little bit
holding her hand at least. So. Did you have anything to add for Stillwell?
I mean, I was curious, like, because they kept bringing up like her newborn, and I don't know if we'll get into this when we talk about Homelander too, but like, there seemed to be a weird power dynamic there where like, I don't know if he like felt threatened, and I wondered like, is he the father, or like, is he just, I guess looking at it now, he's just jealous that like now she has an actual kid, since he kind of views her as a mother figure or something.
Yeah.
They brought up her and her newborn a lot, I felt like, and that just like that was something that confused me for a little bit. And I think I've kind of figured out what they were going for now. Yeah, I mean, I liked that she was like so bent on like maintaining, like, I guess keeping her specific superheroes relevant, and like, yeah, militarizing them, and she's kind of like at the top of the game with that.
And then the last person I'm going to mention for sociopathic, the one that quote-unquote raised Homelander, Dr. Vogelbaum. I read on Reddit, it was just a speculation post, that it might have been done on purpose the way Homelander was raised. Like, dude said when Homelander not met him, but like Homelander came back to him, it was like, "You're my greatest mistake." And with him saying that, you'd think he meant like he made a mistake in like raising Homelander the way he did in a lab without parents and in a white room with just a blanket. But they kept bringing in more and more tutors, like he was, and I'm like paraphrasing the post. They kept bringing in more and more tutors, like almost Vogelbaum was encouraging the behavior Homelander was giving the tutors, because there was I think a first look or a teaser for season 1 about Homelander's origin, and he's talking to a tutor and asking prodding questions, and eventually just squeezes her, like hugs her, and then squeezes her so tight that he kills her. And then he's like smiling slightly by the end of the teaser at what he just did. And supposedly they kept bringing in more and more tutors. Like I said, like Vogelbaum was encouraging the behavior he was showing. So it's not like he didn't know what he was doing. Like, "Oh, I should have given you parents from the start, man. I can't believe you turned out to be a sociopath." Like, yeah, why would he not? But I think that quote came from him regretting making Homelander what he became. Like, "I should have just never made a sociopathic superhero." Like, he did say you should have been raised in a normal home and stuff like that. There was no advantage to me making you sociopathic.
Yeah, wasn't there also a moment like when they did like the fake Homelander origin story thing, and
yeah,
did he mention that, like, did they have like a prop blanket there that he got upset about, or am I remembering that wrong?
yes, they did. And the blanket was from that was the blanket that the only thing he was allowed to keep. You know what? I think we might as well just get into Homelander the character, because I think we've mentioned him enough at this point. So yes, I'm going to the Fane backstory note I have. Yeah, he was given that backstory to represent America and baseball and apple pie. I think he mentioned all of that.
Yeah, which, I mean, if you watch that for real, sorry, but like, if anyone believes that, like, come on, it's a little too perfect to be true.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think casting was a topic, but Anthony Starr was just like fantastic in the Homelander role. Like,
oh yeah,
him switching from the crazy person to, "Oh man, I could almost smell the silver paint." That type of he was just really great at the role and what he did. Just fantastic. And like I said, the whole reason I watched the series was because I saw a 5-minute YouTube video on Homelander scenes, and I was just like, "Yo, this show is worth watching just because of this guy. Like, this is insane."
Yeah, I think I found the supercut you were talking about, and I at least watched one. I don't know if it was exactly the same, but it was probably similar, if not. And yeah, that's probably like the best teaser they could have put out if they had decided.
And I don't think it was by them. I think it was just by a random dude on the internet. And he was just like, because people do.
Well,
that.
I mean, there's too many spoilers in it, I guess, for them to do that. But like, still, like,
the only thing that got spoiled me from that was Stillwell's death, but that didn't really bother me. Like, the plane scene was what really grabbed me. Yeah, like I said before, everybody in the comics had their own feigned backstories that would make the public think they were more than just test tube babies, which is exactly what they were. Oh, so I just realized the backstory they give the public, and this was obviously that I don't know why I didn't think of this before, was that they were chosen by God. They weren't given like backstories. The only one that we've seen in the show was the Homelander one because they were recording that.
Right, but they like nobody supposedly like I mean you see like nobody got bitten by a radioactive spider or dropped in a vat of whatever.
Yeah, nobody's the queen of hell or anything like that. So this man, I don't know why I put this note down. And Homelander is obviously sociopathic Superman. What would happen if you took Superman and took his parents away and raised him in a lab? This is what the outcome would be, and then put him in a world where superheroes are products more than they are heroes.
I remember thinking back just on that note. I remember in a lot of the trailers for Suicide Squad, they had the line, "What if Superman had come down to the White House and like kidnapped the president? Who would have stopped him?" And like it was, I mean, obviously we see how that turned out, but like this show really does ask that question. They're like, yeah, what if he actually was the type of person to do that and no one could stop him? Because it doesn't seem like anyone can. So like that was really compelling, I thought.
So another thing is he's never seen out of his costume. I don't think any of them are besides Starlight, which makes sense because she is, she's the pure one. She's the one that just joined them. We know who she is, who she was before. Like the first scene we saw of her, I believe, was her punching like the side walls of the garage or something like that. Like she's out of costume. She's just Annie January in that moment. What's different with Homelander as opposed to the rest, maybe besides Black Noir, because in the show, I know who Black Noir is, but in the show, we don't know who it is. He has no secret identity. He does have the name John. We don't know his last name because Vogelbaum refers to him as John. But he has no life outside of the Seven as opposed to somebody like Maeve or A-Train. Maeve having her girlfriend or ex-girlfriend, and A-Train, having Popclaw, and then Translucent, we see him outside of his costume a lot more than I would have liked to.
I actually really liked, at first I thought like the flag cape was like a little bit of a weird choice, but then there was this one shot of it where like, I don't remember exactly when, but like it was him from the back with the cape swishing, and like I got scared for a second. I was like, wow, that's like somehow super intimidating. And like him as a whole is too. Like people talk about like Thanos being like an intimidating villain, but I feel like Homelander is even more because like you could meet someone who looks just like Homelander, and like seeing him be so like ruthless, and it actually is kind of scary to watch him.
I think one of the best scenes with his intimidation, well, really any of the scenes where he has the Seven in the room besides the very first one, in the briefing room, I think it is, besides the first one where he's welcoming Starlight, like there was one where he's rubbing the Deep shoulders like, why would you go to Stillwell about what you found in the plane? And the Deep's like, what? I don't even know what I saw. Homelander, what are you talking about? And he's just like, am I stupid, Deep? Because do you think I'm stupid? He's like, no, Homelander.
Yeah, the subtext in that scene was pretty good.
And then there was the one with, I think there was one with A-Train where I think it was after he has to kill Popclaw, like gives her a heroin overdose. He was like, I'll always be watching over you. Like the subtext in that line was really good. He just gives him a hug. He's just like, just remember, I'll always be watching over you. And then there was, of course, the big explosion scene in the briefing room with all of them in there.
Oh yeah, when they're kind of accusing Starlight.
Yeah, and he was so good in that scene he's like downplaying what Starlight can do. You just like keep your hands down by your sides, shut your effing mouth, young lady, and all of that. Like it was just so good. And of course I'm not condoning any of his actions. I'm just saying the intensity I felt in each of those scenes, like because of what this sociopath can do and what he has done, I felt like any one of them in all of his scenes could have died at any moment. Like, I could have completely seen him killing off any one of them at any point, and then just having PR cover it up. That's what made those scenes scary.
Yeah, but again, like you said, like the one thing stopping him from doing that is his brand. Because like it seems like at the moment he could kill anyone he wants and do whatever he wants, and no one would stop him. But then he'd stop being the Homelander everyone knows.
That's what I said. Why the PR team would probably be able to cover that up. Like if because he looked like he was ready to burn through Starlight just then and there. So if he were to do it, technically speaking, all the people in PR would be like, "Oh, she suffered." Like they covered up Translucent's thing. Like he was on a mission, and they never really told the public what really happened there.
Yeah, I know they kind of dropped that off like halfway through the season, which I kind of bumped on. Like I feel like that shouldn't have happened, but whatever. Yes, he's invisible. Yes, like I guess they could pass it off.
But the PR team could have just passed that off as, oh no, she was on a mission and she's fighting something. Oh no, they do address your Translucent's thing with the two PR people. You know, do you remember the two people who gave Starlight her new costume, where they were like playing it up?
Is it Seth and Evan from marketing? Because I have something to say about them at the end.
Those two. Yeah, it was those two, and they were like, he's fighting MS-13 or something like that, and then still was like, MS-13, I like that. I think that's where it ended. Like, that was the end of his PR thing. Because she said, I don't know what it looks like if we mention that our unkillable superheroes are killable when they mention, like, he could have been on a mission and died. Like, they would have probably done something like that if Homelander were to snap and kill one of the other 7. Like I said, that's why I believe that in that scene. Like, they would be able to cover up whatever he did. Just like he could cover up that plane crash scene for himself. Like,
yeah, he seems like he would have thought it through. If he was going to do it, he would have known, like, okay, I can get away with this.
I love that he's able to figure things out just by, like, he's not, like the Deep said, he's not a dumb person. So the fact that he found out, he's the one himself that found out who's after them and all of this stuff, and the fact that Starlight was dating the dude that's trying to take them down, one of the people that's trying to take him down, is he's such a great character. And then last thing for Homelander, because we're going on, but he, to me, is the most interesting character in the series. His mommy issues with Stillwell, like the biggest thing. I think we kind of addressed this a little bit, but it's still ends up being weird when he has sex with her and busts in 10 seconds. Like, it's just weird, but I get it. Like, he didn't grow up with a mother, and I guess all children feel the need to have some sort of mother and father figure. I'd say Vogelbaum was as close to a father figure as he could have had, because Vogelbaum was the one that was constantly watching over him, but Vogelbaum didn't even attempt to get connected or close to him. And Vogelbaum himself mentions this when Homelander flies down. He's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Breeding dogs. I try not to get connected to my subjects." So, yeah, did you have anything to add about his mommy issues?
Well, I think someone did comment. I forget who it was, but I think someone did comment on, like, the relationship between them and how it's just, like, it's a little weird and no one can quite get a handle on it. I feel like it was a minor character. They might not have even had a name, but I do remember that coming up.
So that's it from the Homelander, unless you have anything else to add for him in general.
The only other thing I would add is that I liked his intro, where we kind of, like, the whole first episode, he doesn't show up a whole lot, and we don't get a sense that he's going to be a villain at first, and then the ending comes, and it's like, oh god, this guy is, like, that's who he is.
Yep. You guys, you are the real heroes. My favorite lines.
I know, that's so aggravating when he says that. Because that's, like, honestly though, like, that would be aggravating. Like, that sounds like something Captain America would say,
right?
And, like, mean it, but also, like, it's just so cheesy.
Yeah, like, that's like when, did you see Hancock with Will Smith?
I know of it.
So in that, Will Smith is basically drunk Superman. He meets with the PR guy who's played by Jason Bateman, and the PR guy's like, "Yo, you got to be a superhero," and he's like, "Okay, cool." There's a lot more to it than that, of course, but
the thing is, like, Will Smith would say that tongue in cheek, and like you could feel the sarcasm, but like
yeah,
Homelander or like Chris Evans as Captain America would say that dead serious, and it would just come off as like,
yeah,
like it's kind of funny when Homelander says it a lot of times.
yeah,
Like it's dark because it's usually after, like, I think he does it in the one scene with the terrorists.
yep. The military. He's like, "Oh,
you guys are the real heroes. Now let me go in and just yeet all these guys."
But yeah, in Hancock, he's there's like a similar thing where he's PR guy Jason Bateman told him to say like "good job" to all the cops. He's like, "You're putting your lives out on the line. Good job." And they make a joke out of it because he's like really awkward with it because he's not like used to smiling or anything because he's a depressed drunk. So yeah, I'd recommend that movie. I just rewatched it with my family recently, and I just like the movie. I like seeing different takes on Superman, so he's one of my favorite heroes. We have a few more one more topic to go, and then like 3 more characters to address. Also, to answer your question, you said when it's start becoming a thing. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. But they were bred since birth, so any time frame from when they were birthed, I would say. But I guess when did they become as big as they did, I have no clue.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the show really gives an indication of that. But like you were kind of saying, like, there aren't any dead superheroes, I guess. So it's like, I guess this is the first generation of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like, I guess maybe like the 90s is about the earliest that they maybe would have started coming up.
Probably.
Yeah, because I was wondering if it was going to run into the problem that like Bright has, where they posture that like superheroes have existed forever.
Oh, at the end?
Then they have
end?
like...
No, wait, Bright or Brightburn?
Bright.
Oh, you mean like the magic thing with Will Smith?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because that one, this is a Lindsay Ellis video talking right now, but like the whole thing with that was that like magic's existed for like 2,000 years, but they still reference like the Alamo and like Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if that was going to be the same issue with this, but it seems like the starting point of when Supes existed is recent enough that like we can basically have them exist in the modern day world that's otherwise basically the same.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a question I had while I was watching it.
I guess that links into corporate America and marketing, which is the last topic before we get into more characters. Being all about the money. I mentioned before, the heroes are more products than they are heroes. And, you know, the fact that they're merchandising, movies, games, comic books, all of this other stuff. I didn't really have many notes on this topic either, but if you have anything to add, feel free.
No, I think I actually kind of addressed some of them earlier, like the fact that, yeah, they all have a brand and there's like a lot of red tape and decisions that are being made
for them.
Yeah. I really liked that was part of it, though, because that feels like one of the most true things about the show is that, like, they would be treated like celebrities and you'd have to create, like, I mean, they have, like, the whole line of, like, A-Train sports drinks and toys or something at the convenience store in the one scene, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same thing as what happens in real life with major characters, and especially now, like, Marvel has toys and stuff out, merchandise out everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But now, I did have a question, though, with, I mean, I'm not really expecting you to answer this, but, like, when they say they're making movies with about all these superheroes, like, are they documentaries or are they fictional?
I believe they're fictional, because there was something this Stillwell mentioned at the first keynote speech or whatever when they introduced Starlight. She said some movie, something war, has grossed over 1.7 billion.
Oh yeah.
So
and in light of Endgame, I was a little bit like, peasants. 1.7. Like,
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. I was like, wait, 1.7. How much did Endgame make? 2.2? Oh, okay.
yeah. I guess it came out recently enough after, though, that they wouldn't have had that. They wouldn't have known to make the number higher. But
Yeah.
I still kind of laughed when that happened.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some of the, well, I guess the last few topics and some of the other main characters. We'll start with Huey, but I guess Butcher is kind of like his opposite, so they're kind of wrapped together a little bit, because I don't have that many notes on Butcher. I thought Huey would be like the whiny pushover main character, the pure one, and I thought definitely he proves himself to me when he kills Translucent. I was like, oh god, yes, good. I don't know why I think like that. Like, I just don't like, it's not that I don't like pure characters, but maybe it's just I don't like whiny pushover pure main characters. Like, I don't know. And I realize that he's not entirely the blame, because you see the weakness in his father, so maybe that's probably where the pushover thing came from, because I think his mother died when he was young or something like that. Yeah, I don't really have much on Huey either. Like, he wasn't my main focus for the series at all, even though he was the main character. There was a really funny speech, the monologue with Translucent. He was like, Translucent was saying, you're just like a pile, you're a sack of meat filled with blood and guts and stuff, and I'm a superhero guy, and and then he just ends it by saying, you're not the hero of this story. And I'm like, no, that's exactly what he is. It's unfortunate for you because you don't know that.
He doesn't realize that Huey has plot armor.
Yeah, the strongest armor of all.
I actually really liked Huey as a character. Like, I did wonder initially if they were gonna take that route with him, where was a little bit more of like a Scott Pilgrim type and just kind of like complain the whole time.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really refreshing to see like that take on the revenge character. First of all, that like that's who they have at the center of it, is like a victim of collateral damage. Because they had in Captain America Civil War, I remember they had that one scene where the woman whose son dies in, I guess, Age of Ultron comes up to Tony Stark. That was a really cool scene, but it's like that was kind of it. And I always like,
I mean, the villain in that one was a victim of collateral damage too.
Who was?
God, Baron Zemo, the guy who was brainwashing.
Oh, right, the villain of that one. Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, he was a victim of that, because he mentioned when he was talking to Black Panther about his family, him taking like 2 days to dig up his family or something like that from Sokovia.
Yeah, I really liked the take they did with Huey on this, though, because like, especially because he ultimately decides not to take revenge on A-Train, but like he really struggles with it throughout. He's like, because obviously he's just lost someone really important to him in a really traumatic way.
Yep.
But he's also kind of realizing like, yes, part of me wants revenge on him, but like, is that really going to change anything? And I guess this kind of ties in with Butcher, but he's kind of got
I was gonna say that.
the foil with that, where it's like Butcher is in the same situation,
but he doesn't let his revenge go.
Yeah, he takes a very opposite approach. He's like I can't believe I'm not thinking of the term. He's a cautionary tale for Huey.
Yep. Just like Maeve is for Starlight, but they're the next character, so we'll get into that. But yeah, he did. I did like his comedic moments. He was really a lot. I like most of the comedic moments in the show. The ones with Mother's Milk and Frenchie were really funny. Their quips at each other, and then the one with Ezekiel in the tent, where he couldn't bring up his phone, so he just had to say that Ezekiel effed him, and he played his butt like jazz.
That was something I liked about him too, was that like he could think on his feet, but I also bought it from him.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like there's some characters, like I know we bring him up a lot, but Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man has some moments where he does something really smart, but I don't buy that he could actually think to do that.
Yep.
But like I think Jack Quaid is the actor, like his performance as Huey, I was like, yeah, I feel like he could have come up and like improvised like that and been able to keep that pressure on Ezekiel and still be able to blackmail him like that. Like it was really quick thinking that a lot of people might not be able to do, but I was like, I think he could.
There was also
So
his background as a salesman when he was working in the cable store, so I think that
yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, and in that scene too, when he electrocutes Translucent, that was like another moment like that where he really thought on his feet, and I was like,
Yeah.
I buy that.
I guess tying into Butcher, I don't really have much on him. Like you said, it's a cautionary tale with what happens if Huey doesn't let go of his revenge. And like you said, by the end, in the beginning of the season, he wants to kill A-Train, but by the end, he's trying to revive him. And Starlight is like, he's never going to stop coming after you, which is kind of giving him, like, in a way, like, kind of giving him the green light, like, yo, you don't have to revive him. But he's like, I know it wouldn't be the right thing to do, so.
Yeah, well, maybe it's also almost more cathartic for him to, like, actually try to save his enemy. Like, just to prove to himself, I guess, that he doesn't have to. I don't know. That maybe was what they were going for with that. Yeah. Although, I didn't love that moment where A-Train suddenly has a heart attack. I got a little bit checked out in that moment.
Really?
I was like, it felt like such a Deus Ex Machina. Like, I get it was from the Compound V and whatever, but, like, it was so moment. Convenient.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I don't really have much on either of them. They are the main characters, but to me they were, like, two of the most, not the most, least interesting, but Frenchie and Kamiko were definitely the most least interesting to me.
Yeah.
But they weren't up there with Homelander. Nobody in the show could touch how interesting Homelander was to me. But do you have anything on either?
Well, I mean, like I said, I actually really liked that we got Huey as a main character. Butcher, I thought was a little frustrating, just because, like, I don't know if they really did anything wrong with him, but he felt really generic. Like, I feel like I've seen a dozen characters just like him. Although I did notice he actually kind of is similar to Cobb from Inception in a way. Not a compliment in that sense. He kind of does the same thing where he's like, because he can't deal with his grief and, like, guilt or whatever, he puts other people in danger. That's kind of like Cobb's whole arc in Inception, and that came up a lot for him too, I noticed.
Cobb is DiCaprio?
Yeah.
I don't remember Inception. Yeah, okay.
Well, that was just something I noticed. Obviously it's a very high standard for me to hold it to, but it did not do it as well.
Even the when they went to the superhero injury thing, like, circle group.
That scene with him was all right. I thought that was one of the better scenes with him. I also just loved that they nodded to that as a thing in this world. Like, that was really cool that they even thought to make that part of it.
Mm-hmm. In that scene, the lady even mentioned, she's like, I've seen your type before, and he's like, I doubt that.
But low-key, there's probably a lot of people like him out there. And he just feels, like, so entitled to his grief.
Yeah, I think that's why they added that. But, yeah, if you don't have anything else...
Yeah, I don't.
Let's move on to Starlight and Maeve. We've kind of mentioned Maeve, both of them, a little bit throughout this. Starlight is a young Maeve, that's pretty evident. And they mention it in the show several times. Like, when even Maeve speaking to Starlight, like, yo, do your own thing. I've already tried what you're doing. Stop that. Mm-hmm. And Stillwell has mentioned it. She's like, you're just like Maeve. Like, Maeve thought she could do whatever she wanted, and now look at her. And then there was a scene with Maeve defending Starlight in front of the Seven when Homelander was cutting down on Starlight for dating Huey. And the entire reason he stops that is because she's, like, speaks out against him for once. And he's like, oh, wow, I've never seen her care about anybody like that. So maybe I'll do it for her. Maybe you've got something special. So, yeah, Starlight is a much younger Maeve. Maeve, I feel like, is there to show Starlight, like, yeah, I've done what you're trying to do. You need to do something a little different. She's also, like Huey... Oh, shoot. I just made this connection. Like Huey with Butcher, Maeve is a cautionary tale for Starlight.
Yeah, but Maeve's also... It's a little bit of a different dynamic because, like, Maeve is kind of a mentor in trying to help Starlight bring out her, like, better parts, and Butcher is trying to get Huey to be like him.
Yeah, as opposed to Butcher trying to bring out Huey's evil. Yeah.
So it is similar, but there's a like
Their
they do
goals are
kind of have two
opposite.
takes
Yeah.
on it. Yeah, I think Maeve was probably my favorite out of everyone on the
Really?
show. I kind of wanted to see more from her. Yeah, I mean, I really liked what you're saying, how she's like the cautionary tale and the mentor to
Mm-hmm.
Starlight, but also like even some of the scenes she has, not exactly alone, but like where it's she's operating outside of that, like even that first scene where she stops the bus, like that shot was really
Oh
cool,
yeah,
first of
where
all.
it goes through her. Oh yeah, that was freaking
Yeah,
insane.
and it like splits
Yeah.
around her. That was one of my favorite moments. And then the well, I guess this is within like her relationship with Starlight, but one of my favorite scenes too was when she tells Starlight, because I guess there was like they mentioned she had something where she like stopped the bus and
Mm-hmm. With the
apparently broke
arm,
her
her
arm doing
rotator
it, and
cuff.
Starlight was like, "Oh, bollocks" or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, "No, that like PR definitely made that up." And then later in the last episode, Maeve's like, "No, it's not fully healed."
Mm-hmm.
And like that just speaks so much to like who she was versus who she's kind of turned into in terms of just being whoever the Seven and Vought need her to be.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite moments in the show. Part of why it's so good is because there's so many moments before that where we see the conflicts with her wanting to be more of a hero and also wanting to just not rock the boat.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we see a little bit of her coming out of that standard, trying to follow what Vought tells her to do when. Well, I don't know if Vought told her to do this because they don't mention it, but her saying she supports Starlight in every way when she came out about the Deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if Vought told her to do that, but it seemed like a decision she made on her own to me for some reason. I think there was like a line she said before she said she supports Starlight. Like, I don't know.
Just one other small thing for Starlight. It's not even exactly about her. Is like I kind of feel like she's the new Daenerys. And I know you don't watch Game of Thrones, so I don't know if you know who that is, but
Mother of
like
Dragons?
yeah. There's a lot I feel like there's a lot of similarities there where she's kind of like the woman in power in the show. And without
Mm-hmm.
giving spoilers for Game of Thrones, although at this point I don't know why I bother. I don't think they're going to do what they did with her, but it felt like they were kind of using a little bit of shorthand to kind of indicate that she's sort of like a similar archetype of a character.
Oh, I saw what happened at the end of Game of Thrones, so I kind of know what happens. I don't really care. I don't think I'm ever gonna watch it, but
Okay. Well, I kind of felt like she is playing into the season 1 through 7, I guess, Daenerys. There were moments that reminded me of that.
mm,
Although I did one other thing with her was just I noticed she's kind of the only traditional superhero in the whole show who's like actually looking out for people and trying to act, and like her mission is actually to like protect people.
yeah, yeah. I just want to shout out a couple of comedic moments as far as music went for me. Like, there were two specific hero moments. Like, there's heroic music playing before something like non-traditional happened. For example, the Deep. There was like a moment when the Deep was leaping from the dock. When he was doing the team up with Starlight, he leapt from the dock, and there was heroic music playing as he fell, and then there was just it cut off as soon as he plopped into the water. It was the one with the shooter in the building with Homelander and Maeve teaming up. And
Yeah.
Homelander said, "All right, sit tight," and took off. There was heroic music playing, and it immediately cut off as soon as he crashed through the side of the window. I don't know. I just wanted to shout. Those were pretty funny moments to me.
Yeah, I had a couple of things I noticed with the music too.
Mm-hmm.
One is good, two not so much. I'll start with the good one. I think it was the Citizen Starlight trailer. They used "Roar" by Katy Perry.
Oh God. Oh my
I'm not
God.
a fan of that song, but damn if it isn't exactly the song they would have
Yeah.
picked for that. It was
Oh
like a
my
little too
God.
perfect there.
Jesus
I kind of laughed
Christ.
when they did that. But the two that I kind of bumped on, This one is a little more nitpicky, but they use the song "Neat Neat Neat" by The Damned, I think, and it's really brief. I don't even remember when it comes up, but Baby Driver used that first, and just because Baby Driver is so into music, I feel like it's a little bit. I don't want to like call him out too much for it, but I got a little bit upset that they did that just because Baby Driver used it a little better. It's in the scene when he like starts the song over when they're doing like one of their heists. That's when the song comes up in Baby Driver. But the third one I really did bump on. This one comes up in the first episode. It's
with him in the tower.
yeah, so it's the scene when Huey's entering the tower. And if you remember, it's the song goes ah, and then it goes brrr, and has the really cool drum beat. So the song is called, and I'm mostly calling this out because I don't think a lot of people would know what this is from, but it's called "Take You Down" by Daniel Pemberton, if you want to look it up. And originally, that song was used in "The Man from U.N.C.L.E."
Okay.
Yes.
Close.
It's and like here's the thing too. It's not a song. It's like part of the score for that movie. Yeah, I rewatched the scene that it's originally from. They use it in this pretty cool car chase in that movie, and I was just like, yes, it worked well in that scene, but like, it really felt like they stole it. And I love that song. Like, I love driving to that song. Literally, I think when I first got a Spotify playlist, that was one of like the first 10 songs that I got. So I recognized it right away, and I was like,
Are you drifting and stuff and outrunning cops when you listen to it in real life?
I wish, but sadly, I have a hard enough time parking. So, but it's, to give the show credit, they use it well, and it's a great background score, but they stole it from something else.
You don't think they did it on purpose, though? Like, the whole reason they put that song in there was because of it being, like, of course they knew it was because that's where they took it from. Man from the car, in a car, uncle, auntie, whatever.
Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Yeah. Like, you don't think the purpose of them like using that song was because it wasn't as epic as what was happening in Man from U.N.C.L.E.?
Well,
Like,
I just don't like that they took it at all. Like, I get it. Like, you know, it's not as if one movie has a monopoly on a certain song, but when it's the score,
that's like taking the Transformers theme and adding it to Homelander saving a bunch of people or something.
I don't know why you do that, but
Yeah.
I guess, or I guess to put it on an even bigger example, like if you used portals from Endgame for literally anything else, like you just can't do that. And that's kind of what they did. They just did it with a movie that underperformed, and it upset me. Like, that was one of my 5 underrated for the decade, and I think I put it at the top. Maybe this is me bumping on it too much, but I got kind of irritated when that happened. It is a cool scene, though. I'll give it that.
Yep. All right, we gotta move on here.
Yeah, sorry.
You mentioned pacing things, but I wanna before we get to that, I wanna hear what you had to say about Frenchie and Kimiko. Oh, we also didn't mention Mother's Milk, but I didn't really have much to say about him. Like, I feel like I've seen that kind of character before. Like,
they didn't really give him that much to do. I felt like I was fine with him there, but I mean, they didn't really give us anything compelling with him. So
besides his relationship with his wife, but I feel like I've seen that out of a black character before. Like Terry Crews in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, he's kind of like that with his wife. Not as, I don't want to say wimpy, but
they kind of play it for laughs in this.
Yeah.
I felt like like everyone else was like, "You've got a family? Oh, lame." And he's like, "No, like, come on, I gotta deal with this." And but they don't really give it that much attention.
But Frenchie and Kimiko, what did you have to say about them? Like, were they forced?
Yeah, not a lot. It's just that they just spent so much time on that plot line the whole time. I was just like, oh god, I don't freaking care about this.
That's exactly what it was for me. I just realized, like, I was wondering I agreed there was something like I didn't like about it, but I think you're right. The amount of time they spent on them was just not necessary.
Yeah, and it does build up to a decent reveal, because I think ultimately that was how we found out that, like, superheroes were being created and all that. I think that was
Yeah.
basically the purpose of it. And, like, Frenchie just, like, every time he talks, it sounds like he's monologuing. And I was
Oh
just like,
God, yeah.
that was the first thing that I noticed. I was like, oh, that just feels so wrong and,
Mm-hmm.
like, kind of tacky. And then he kept on trying to like understand Kamiko, but she like attacked him like multiple times, and I was like, okay, I know he's gonna end up being right, but everyone else should be shutting him down right now. Like
Mm-hmm.
there were at least two instances where he was like trying to reason with her, and then she ended up like almost killing all of them. It's like, no, at that point, just
Mm-hmm.
logically stop.
And Mother's Milk was trying to tell him, like, you got other people killed, like in the subway. I think it was the subway scene. You got other people killed before because you couldn't follow orders. Like, dude, stop.
Yeah, that irritated me every time that plot line came up. I would have skipped forward if I had known how far to skip.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately not a deal breaker, but easily my least favorite thing. And then just like one other small thing that I bumped on was just there were a couple of pacing things that felt a little weird. Like they'd spend like the entire episode with like the boys and Homelander and the Soups doing all sorts of stuff, and then they'd cut back to like Huey and Annie in the same bar, and I was like, wait, that was
Oh,
all happening at the same time? Like
mm.
it's been hours and they're still here? Like
You mean like the bowling scene, for example?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like that. And again, not a deal breaker, but it clearly wasn't supposed to be non-linear. Like it kind of seemed like it was supposed to be these things happening at the same time basically,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not the worst thing, but I did notice it, which it's not good that I noticed it.
Oddly enough, when I would see the plane scene, which again was like one of my favorite intense scenes of the show, like I always tried to remember what led up to that. It was a scene with Huey and Annie just talking about like stuff in the bowling alley, and I was like, wait, that's what led up to this? Like that's what led to that intense scene in the plane with 123 people dying? Like they were just talking and then there's a plane crash. I wasn't completely on board with that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not familiar with the source material, but it did feel like maybe somehow the source material and what was in it was limiting them a little bit in some of those cases. Like even the way they talked about like Mallory, it almost
Mm-hmm.
felt like they were setting her up as like a reveal or something. They like infused the mentions of her with like the wrong amount of like mystery, I guess. And if I
Yeah.
went back through and looked at it, maybe I'd see something I didn't see the first time. But I
Mm-hmm.
did just notice like there were a couple things where it seemed like they wanted it to be like a mystery thing, but they didn't really set it up like that. Again, not a deal breaker, but something that I wasn't a fan of.
Yep. That's all I got. Did you have anything like else in general to add?
Just one thing. This is very anecdotal, but I did notice. So there's the characters Seth and Evan from marketing, which for one thing
Oh
I know
yeah.
why that's in there, because they had Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg working on the show, and they're kind of a
Oh.
duo. But I also freshman year roomed with a guy named Seth,
Mm-hmm.
and there's the movie Superbad, which is written by those two I was mentioning,
Mm-hmm.
and they have the main characters Seth and Evan. And as soon as I saw that I was rooming with him, I was like, ah, so it's just like Superbad.
Oh, Seth and
And
Evan. You're Seth. I mean, you're
yes,
Evan.
and
And
my
yeah.
friend Seth has not yet seen Superbad, so he doesn't quite get the reference. But I think I asked him within like a week of meeting him. So at first I noticed that I was like, huh, that's there again, and then I was like, ah, there we go. That's why, because they have like
Mm.
Seth Rogen, I think, as a cameo in it.
Yeah,
But
when he's like the Vought, the Vought cinematic universe
yeah, I
or
think
the
he was
VCU.
promoting like the Black Noir movie.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And Black Noir was sitting there chatting up a storm with him.
Yeah, and just one other. This is really stupid, but something I want out of season two that is totally not going to happen, just because like they call superheroes soups in this, and
Mm-hmm.
it just sounds so ridiculous. I now kind of want there to be like a character named Lentil the Soup or like Chicken Noodle the Soup,
All right,
so that
Evan. All right, Evan.
it would hit some fan service things for me. And then if they
Evan.
topped it off with someone going, "Hey, you know the thing about lentil? You always be looking
my-
like a snack."
All right,
And like,
Evan. What? Evan.
I'm sorry, I know it's really stupid, but I
What are you
want that out of
talking
season
about?
2.
What?
Just because they call it that, they call them soups, and it sounds really ridiculous. Like,
Oh my
I want
God.
some, even if it's just like someone making, like, I want them to indicate that it sounds as dumb as it does.
Oh, I found a meme about soups being on soups. I'm gonna send you that too.
Well, Huey's last name is Campbell. They have to do something with that.
Oh my
If
God.
he becomes a superhero, it's Campbell Soup.
Oh my God.
They have to do something
Evan.
with it.
Evan.
Hey, they did it to themselves.
Evan.
I know it's dumb, but they gave me a softball. I'm trying to hit it.
All right. But if that's it,
That is it.
That's gonna be it from us for this time, guys.
Just the standard boilerplate. Our next episode's going to be Ex Machina, and then you can like us on Facebook, subscribe, rate us on iTunes. You can send in comments, questions, and requests or suggestions to intanalysis18@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at intanalysis18, and I'm on Twitter at Davos Watson.
I'm on Twitter at Jelani T Kelly. I'm on Instagram at Base Phoenix. And go buy Descended. That's out now. Like for Kindle and paperback, like the final versions are good to go. So go ahead and get your copies. Get your copies. I promise you, it's a good soup book. You can read it while drinking soup or watching The Boys about Campbell's soup.
Maybe don't read it while watching it, but yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's any... I'm not thinking of any soup puns to make with any of your characters. Lux soup doesn't really make sense. But,
Tech soup.
tech soup, yeah.
Tomato.
We'll run with that. We'll make it a thing.
There's superhero soup. I'm not going anywhere with this. All right.
Yeah, all right. All right, let's quit while we're ahead and stop digging. I am sorry for opening that can of worms.
You mean can of soup? Hey.
I walked right into that one.
Can of soup, Evan.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.
All right, peace out.